Hey, I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with a first alert update and a live Q&A here on Facebook. So as you join us, go ahead and type in comments, questions in the comments section, and I'll answer them for you. Let me start off by showing you what's going on right now. This is live, so this is live radar too. Got this little band of some rain pushing through St. Louis. Eventually, this is the steadier rain that will come in. That started in Farmington. We may have some flakes. I'll bet we at least have some flakes trying to mix in down to the south. Remember that color code. Just the radar guesstimating what's falling at this point. I haven't had any confirmation of anything real heavy down there, but probably some flakes flying. But this is the beginnings as you see the snow from Oklahoma, Arkansas, and southern Missouri, and then that'll continue to stretch up into St. Louis. This is the low that's going to trek into the area, and it's really following this path through Memphis, just south of southern Illinois here, and up towards Cincinnati. The heavy snow is on the northwest side of the low track, and so that is going to come through southeast of St. Louis. Now, we're still going to get inches of snow, but the heaviest snow is going to be south and southeast of St. Louis. That's where we anticipate. It's why you see all that pink along that heavy snow path. Now, we're in it in the winter storm warning. That's what the pink is, and it goes through Wednesday. The blue is a winter weather advisory. Less snow up to the north, maybe 2 to 4 inches up there, whereas we're going to be dealing with 3 to 7 across the St. Louis metro, and heavier totals even farther to the south. Let me show you how this progresses first, and then I'll get into more on the totals. The heaviest snow is midnight to 8 a.m. in St. Louis. The biggest impact is on the morning, and we'll be at or above freezing. So it's really when the snow's coming down heaviest, which is that midnight to 8 a.m., that it can overcome the melting, not only on grass and raised surfaces, but it'll be slushy or in some cases snowy on roads where it comes down so heavy it even overcomes the melting on pavement. So here we are by 8 o'clock, rain in St. Louis, 39 degrees. Let's advance to 10 o'clock. We see that transition happening in St. Louis. It's already happened to the south. And then here's midnight. So 9 to midnight is kind of the time frame that we're transitioning, mixing with snow and then eventually going to all snow in St. Louis. And then here, midnight on, overnight, this is when we get the bulk of our accumulation. There's 34 degrees at 7 a.m. as we're still dealing with a messy morning commute, which will be lighter because already we have schools that are closing. You can find that on our app and on our website at kmovie.com. And then here by 10 a.m., it's really starting to ease up. I think conditions improve quickly in the late morning and afternoon. This won't add up any additional accumulation, but spots of light snow or a little light rain in the afternoon. But the temperature's 36. We're above freezing. That's why I think we'll get great improvement. So it's really the morning that I'm focused, overnight and morning, that this makes for a mess. And then as far as the roads go, they'll improve greatly as we head later into the day. All right, let me step off to the side and get an iPad here so I can get your questions. And again, if you're just joining us, I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton, doing a live Q&A here on Facebook, helping to answer your questions as far as all this snow and make sure you're ready and know what to anticipate. Sarah Clark watching, thank you. And Amy Whitehead also joining us, appreciate that. Adam Twellman was one of the first to join us too, thank you. So in the comments, just type in questions you have and I'll answer them. Let me start by kind of explaining 3 to 7 inches across the metro. It's less to the northwest and more to the southeast. So in St. Charles County, I'm expecting more like 3 to 4 inches. In St. Louis, more like 4, maybe 5. And then you go south into Jefferson County, Monroe in Illinois, and St. Clair County, and that's where you get into the better chance for that 5 to 6. So Belleville to Festus to Hillsborough, 5 to 6, maybe some spots of 7. And then obviously the heavier totals to the south in the Ozarks, Farmington to Centerville, a 5 to 9-ish. There could be some spots that are even isolated a little more than that. You'd notice more of this accumulation on grass and raised surfaces, not as much on the pavement, because this is going to melt on the pavement, turn slushy. But in cases where it comes down so heavy, there may be a period of time where it does cover the roads in snow before eventually melts off and turns to slush on the pavement. By the way, these numbers and totals will look most impressive in the morning and not as impressive later in the day. Look at the temperature. I mean, the low's 32, the high's 36. So all the while, this is melting. So later in the afternoon, you have compaction because it's such heavy snow, it compacts. Then you have melting. All that does is eat away at the snowpack. Ryan Macram wants to know, what's your favorite dog breed? That's a rando question, but maybe you know that I have a golden retriever, Seamus. And Seamus is going to have fun in the snow tomorrow, and then we'll have to wipe his 4 muddy, dirty, wet paws. Let's see here. Kimberly Burgess says she loves snow. You know, for snow lovers, we've only had 2.9 inches of snow so far, so you've been missing out. And it's been so warm January. You know, we've had some rain, but we've been so warm that it's just been rain in January. And now we finally have at least temperatures close enough to freezing and it coming down heavy enough that we're going to end up with some snow. Nick Helsley said side roads never get shoveled. Hey, great point, Nick. When I talked about great improvement, I really should have said the main roads, because you're right, side roads. And I got to tell you, rural roads, especially with all the elevation, a lot of hills down here in the Ozark Mountains, and you get south, you get into the hilly areas that don't get plowed as well or as quickly. Where you get that heavy snow and on those more rural roads, it's going to be probably tough driving all the way through the evening, I would imagine. As you get closer to the cities, like a Farmington, a Bonne Terre, a Centerville, a Viburnum, it gets a little bit better and will improve quicker. But bottom line is there will be some melting, there will be some plowing, and so conditions will improve. And of course, in the metro, I expect them to improve quicker because we're not going to get the heaviest snow. We're going to probably get a lot of crews out on the roads, and we'll of course have that melting. Dorothy Fries said, just everyone be safe. Yeah, that's a good point. You know, we don't want to scare you. We just want to prepare you. So this is kind of a wet, slushy snow. It's not a real bad one, I think, especially if you can avoid commuting in the morning. Then later in the day, you're driving, and it's probably just wet roads. So we're trying to prepare you, not scare you, but you still want to be safe. I mean, even if you are having to drive in the morning somewhere, you got to be super careful. Because these slushy, snowy roads, especially if you're driving in some of the heaviest snow, which in St. Louis is that overnight through about 8 a.m., can reduce visibility, make things slick. Is there a chance for, this is Rachel Pelican. This is a great question. Thanks, Rachel, for bringing this up. Is there a chance for refreezing Wednesday night into Thursday? Absolutely. In fact, here's this graphic I made for kind of an overview of the impacts, right? Midnight to 8 a.m. in St. Louis, the heaviest snow overcomes the melting. Then tomorrow afternoon and evening, melting and plowing helps the roads. Main roads improve. Notice I did say main, because you're right, some of the side roads and rural roads are tougher. And then Thursday, Rachel, this answers your question. Watch for the refreeze. The low is 27. So Thursday morning, any meltwater that doesn't have salt or isn't treated, that can turn icy. And the high is only 32. So you're talking about at or below freezing all day. So we're going to get a lot of melting throughout the day Wednesday. Then we're not going to get a lot of melting on Thursday, and we're going to have some freezing and some ice in spots. So definitely keep that in mind. You have a sidewalk, a driveway that you know tends to get really icy when there's dampness on it, and then all of a sudden we get below freezing. Thursday morning is the time to throw that salt down and treat it. Great question, though. Adam Twellman wants to know any freezing rain with this storm. Not for us, no. Let me go back to the picture of this is a live radar view of this storm. This is all snow right here. This is the storm that if it could force warmer air up aloft and then we had freezing temperatures on the ground, that would be the setup for freezing rain, because you would melt snow aloft, it would turn into a raindrop, then it would come down and hit our ground, which is below freezing. That's not going to happen. And one of the reasons it's not going to happen is because we're not going to get below freezing. There may be a spot or two, but generally the low is 32 degrees and 36 is the high for tomorrow. So we're going to stay at or above freezing. We are not going to get freezing rain out of this situation. In fact, if you have a question too of how do you get snow when you have these temperatures that are, at or above freezing? How does that happen? Give me a second and I'll pull up some temperatures here just to show you what we're dealing with right now. 42 in St. Louis, 39 in Sullivan. Notice Rowella's gotten colder. As this precipitation starts, it starts to drag the temperature down. You'll probably settle down there in the low 30s, but 33. So what happens here is when it starts snowing, the temperature up above at about 500 feet above the ground. So not even the height of the arch. That's the point where the temperature goes below freezing. And then it's below freezing everywhere above that. So from 500 feet down to the ground, it's above freezing. So you have snow, which originates up above in that below freezing air, floats down. It hits for only 500 feet are above freezing temperatures. It doesn't melt because that's too shallow of an area of warm air to melt. And so the snowflake makes it all the way to the ground. And then if it is a lot of snow, it overcomes the melting on the ground and actually collects, especially on grass and raised surfaces. And that's this situation where the freezing point is about 500 feet above the ground. Let's see here. Andrew Price said, will the roads be good on Thursday? Okay, so that depends on how they're treated. And I'm going to go to the 7-day just to show you the temperatures here, because that's the refreeze day, right? So you got all this snow and 4 inches or so in St. Louis, and then it starts melting and melting and melting, and then boom, Thursday morning, it starts freezing unless it's treated. If it's treated and there's salt in there, that is going to keep it as just liquid and you'll be just fine. But if you know of a side road, a parking lot, an area that's not treated, it's going to turn icy. It's also not very windy. There's a little bit of a breeze, about 10 to 15 miles an hour. The reason I mention that is because sometimes when it's really windy, that pushes dry air onto that damp pavement and helps evaporate it. So there still may be some melting and refreezing that we need to watch on Thursday. In the afternoon, 32, so we're still just borderline freezing. So I think most of the roads, especially treated roads, are going to be just fine for you Thursday. But I think you have to be careful about that refreeze on sidewalks, untreated surfaces, maybe parking lots as well. All right, Maddie Hayes just said, any wind? Yes, but not too strong. On our Wednesday, we're going to have winds that are about 10 to 15 miles per hour, and so that won't create any big issues. If anything, it actually might help a little bit by not being too strong. I can't rule out where you get the really, really heavy snow. Let me go back to the snow map. I can't rule out isolated power outages just because the snow's so heavy and wet, especially down here. But the wind actually might help blow some of that heavy wet snow off of power lines and off of some of the trees. I do think the trees are going to get a coating, but that wind might help. So if it's strong enough to help blow some snow off of the power lines and onto the ground, but not strong enough to actually be part of the reason why you get power outages, that would be ideal. But that's still a lot of snow and it's heavy and wet, and isolated power outages can't be ruled out. But 10 to 15 miles an hour, to answer your question, Maddie, is what we're dealing with winds tomorrow. Lori Knepp said, Cadet, Missouri is just way too close to that 5 to 9 inches. Yeah, bottom line is you're definitely in that southeastern Missouri area of some heavy snow down here, and we'll keep an eye out and see just how much you get. Any problems with staffing issues with MoDOT? Should we worry? That's from Nick Helsley. I didn't hear anything. We had some sound bites from MoDOT. They didn't talk about, that I heard, I should say, they didn't talk about staff shortages. What I did hear them talk about is how, and this is MoDOT, not IDOT, that they're not going to pre-treat, so you won't see those striations on the ground. That's because it's going to rain first. And then they said this is mainly a pushing event. I thought that was a great way to describe it. He said this is a pushing event, meaning you're going to get this heavy, wet snow on the ground, and we're just going to shove it off the roads. And I think that's easy to do because this isn't a situation where you shove it off the roads and then boom, there's a layer of ice. That's not going to happen, and that's because we're at or above freezing. I do think maybe you keep an eye on some bridges and overpasses. They get cooled from above and below, so they don't have that warmer ground from below that keeps the temperature warmer. So they get colder, and maybe there's some slick spots there that ice up a little bit. But I really think this is mainly about driving on slush and snow when it's coming down heaviest, and that's going to be in the morning. And then by late morning and afternoon, the heavy snow's done, and we get the great improvement coming our way. Cody Litterist just joined. Thank you for watching. James Dickinson as well. Let's see. Kelly Birch joining us too. Appreciate that. I'll tell you what, we've got a lot of people that just joined, and what you might have missed is kind of the overview of things. So let me start with what's going on right now and walk you through everything. There's live radar. We probably have some snow mixing in, but it hasn't quite fully transitioned to all snow down there to the south. And while we might have had a few sprinkles in the metro, the rain really hasn't started. Okay, this is our low, and the track is really important. In fact, this is one of the ways you, in general, forecast where you think the heaviest snow is going to be. First, you forecast the track of the low, and then it's just to the northwest of this low, and then you also look at a different low that's a little higher higher up in the air, about 5,000 feet, called the 850 millibar low. And you track those two things to try and predict where you think the heaviest snow is going to be. And so it's lining up really well south and southeast of St. Louis. Now, we're still going to get inches of snow, but the heaviest snow is tracking south and southeast of St. Louis. We are in winter storm warnings and then winter weather advisories to the northwest, where there's a little less snow. Bottom line is St. Louis is kind of that cutoff where you go off to the northwest, you get less snow. I mean, St. Charles County, and especially Lincoln County, you're going to see big drop-offs. You go from St. Louis down towards Festus and eventually to Farmington, you see huge ramp up in snow totals. So we're kind of right on that cusp, but still getting inches of snow. The bulk of this snow for St. Louis is midnight to 8 a.m. Biggest travel impact is in the morning because that's when the snow's coming down heaviest and overcoming the melting. So it's this overnight and early morning. By the time the heavy snow winds down, 9, 10 a.m. in St. Louis, still some light snow, but it's winding down. I think you start with the improvement because you're already melting some of it because you're at or above freezing. And so what snowy roads are out there are going to turn to slush. What slushy roads are out there are going to turn more wet. So things will improve quickly once you get that heavy snow to stop. Here is the timing on this. As we go to 10 o'clock, we're in this snow-rain mix in St. Louis at 37. We might, especially on the south side of the metro, already transition to all snow at that point, but it'll go from the south to the north, and by midnight, we're all in the metro dealing with just all snow. But we're still at or above freezing at 34. There's the bulk of our accumulation, heavy enough that it accumulates, overcomes the melting on grass and raised surfaces. And there's that wind down, 10 a.m. Still snowing in some spots, maybe some minor additional accumulations, a few tenths of an inch, half an inch, but really the bulk of the snowfall's done. And we're above freezing, so you're getting melting. And that's my tip for this. If you don't have to shovel, let it sit there and just know that it will compact because it's heavy and it'll melt because we're at 36 degrees in the afternoon. And you still might get some hits of light rain or spots of light snow, but those from the afternoon to evening won't add up to much of anything. Here we are at 6 o'clock, still at 36 and melting. The one thing about the melting is if you do leave it so that you don't have to shovel that heavy snow and it stresses out your body, some people call it heart attack snow because it's just so heavy and it really stresses you. If you do that, just keep in mind we have the refreeze to watch Thursday morning. So you've let all that melt water sit there and then we're below freezing by Thursday morning. All right, snowfall forecast, 3 to 7 inches across the metro. That's 3 to 4 in St. Charles County, about 4 inches in St. Louis, maybe 5. And I do think you get better chance of 5 to 6, maybe 7 in Jefferson County, Monroe, and St. Clair counties in Illinois, towns like Belleville to around Festus and Hillsborough, and then the heavier total of 5 to 9 farther to the south, Viburnum, around Potosi, Farmington, Centerville. Less as you go to the north and northwest. I don't think you're going to have huge issues up here because it's not going to snow heavy enough to really cover the roads, but you are going to get some slush on the roads. So to the north, northwest, not as bad. And keep in mind, once that snow stops, it starts melting. So that's the good news there. All right. Let's see. Karen Burmeister's watching. Thank you. Cody said his jacket is off. I'm listening. When his sleeves are rolled up, I'm worried. That's funny. So yeah, the jacket's off because it's Facebook. All right. We're chilling out. I've been on the air since 4 o'clock. I wanted to get rid of the suit coat and just relax a little bit. But you're right, the sleeves are not rolled up. And by the way, I do that because it hopefully grabs people's attention. So when we have severe weather and tornadoes, sleeves are rolled up just to grab your attention and tell you, hey, this is out of the ordinary. This is different. This is special. We need you to pay attention because everything I do is just to make sure that you're alert and prepared and safe. But it's funny you notice that. I'm in more relaxed mode because it's Facebook, Cody. All right, Crystal City, maybe going to get 6 inches. Let me see. Let's see. Yeah, you know, I've got you in that 4 to 7 for sure. So I think you have the better chance of 5 to 6, maybe 7 inches in Crystal City. Kathy Hopke, thanks for the update. My pleasure, Kathy. Thank you for that. Let's see, Justin Sadler said, some are saying the latest model somewhat of an even more of a southeast shift. Did you notice that? I did. In fact, this 4 to 7 in previous iterations of our forecast was about here. We moved it back to here. That's very subtle, but that's also because I think our forecast was kind of nailing it pretty good so far, and I didn't touch this area of our forecast at all. I left us at 3 to 6, but again, the 6 is going to be on that southern part of the metro. The 3 is going to be up north, and I think we're probably more like 4 here. So while the latest models have showed the heavier 4 to 7 kind of shifting a little bit south. It was a very subtle shift for me because I didn't have it all the way up here. So I did notice that, and we'll have to see how it plays out. But I do think this is going to be a transition zone where, man, you might get some folks with 3.5, 4 inches, and then all of a sudden you go 30 miles, not even 30 miles, southeast, and there's 6.5, 7 inches. So I do think this kind of southern half of the metro and southeastern half of the metro is going to be an interesting transition zone. All depends on that track too. You know, it's all about the track of that low. So that track just goes a little bit farther south. That seemed like a small move from my hand, right? Just a little bit south. All of a sudden, this goes a little bit south, and now you've got, instead of 5 inches, you've got 3.5. And so that's the way that, you know, this bumps to the north too. That's how you go from 5 inches to 7 inches. Jason Griggs is watching. Hey, Jason, thank you for tuning in. Is O'Fallon, Illinois on the line for 6 or 7? Probably focusing too much on the lines, but let me show you what we've got here. I've got you at 4 to 7 in O'Fallon. Yeah, you're closer to like the 4. So this would be more of the like 4 to 5. You go a little deeper into it, like Belleville, 5 to 6. You go deeper into it, and you're more likely into the 6 to 7, right? And then this is where you start ramping up into the, maybe there's some 8 and 9 inch ranges. But O'Fallon's in the 4 to 7. That's O'Fallon, Illinois. Now, O'Fallon, Missouri, by the way, is in that kind of 3 to 4 inch. Much lighter snow is what I'm anticipating in St. Charles County. Good question, though. Regina Jennings jumping in here. Thank you for watching. Just started raining in Irondale. Thank you. Down in Iron County. Appreciate that. That was from Kathy Geiler. All right. Hey, Matt Lair. Thank you. Thanks for providing the most up-to-date information for us. Hello. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate that. It's my pleasure. Just started raining in the Bismarck area, too. So, again, getting a lot of reports down south. We're starting to get that rain certainly coming in. All right. Well, listen, I hope you are all prepared. I hope you're ready for this. I do think this is going to be an interesting one to play out. We really want to see down south where that heavier snow shifts. Is it shifting a little bit north or a little bit south? But bottom line is, I think anywhere from 3 inches on the northwest side of the metro to 6 or 7 inches on the southeast side of the metro, probably more like a 4 inch in St. Louis is what we're looking at. And keep in mind, it melts throughout the day. So let the kids, if they're off of school, enjoy it. It's good snowman packing snow, and hopefully they can just enjoy being a child and enjoying some snow on a day off if they have that day off. We will be here with updates on News 4 at 10. If we do see a shift in that track or any updates as far as the totals, I'll have that for you. And of course, tomorrow morning on News 4 this morning. Hope you all